Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sue Minahan and Talk Cosmos again, July 6th. Well, we had 4th of July, and now we're really looking at these Cancer moons. It's a powerful planet, patterns that are joining in, and it's really a matter of individualistically connecting into the life that a new reality is getting thrust. We can talk about transitions, but there comes that moment when you're in it. You're in the river of change. So let's find out, because we're ready now for Kaleidoscope Visions.
Understanding the cosmic energies influencing our consciousness by the 4 major moon phases for the month, this is your Kaleidoscope Visions panel.
I'm Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
I'm Amanda Pierce. I'm a soul-centered astrologer, blending intuition into my practice. I believe the universe is always working for our highest good and seek to empower my clients in our readings. I teach a 4-week series of empowerment-based meditation classes that connect you deeper into your own intuition and innate power. I work in communications with a passion for employee experience. I also have a BA in psychology. I'm passionate about healing and enjoy helping others create new realities and shift old paradigms.
And I'm John Chinworth, a Seattle astrologer with more than 25 years experience. I use a blend of evolutionary, traditional, and archetypal techniques and constantly attend workshops and lectures to further hone my skills. I hold an MFA in poetics, an MA in teaching, and an astrological diploma. I've lectured at NORWAC and served on the WSAA board. I have worked in general and special education classrooms, both as a teacher and mentor. I also enjoy reading, penning poems, riding a bike, and going on road trips around the great state of Washington.
And like the Sufi poet Rumi says, you are the entire ocean in a drop.
Well, hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Good to see you here again.
Indeed. You have something you want to say. John, I can hear it bubbling.
Oh, I'm just happy to be here. This is great.
Yes, it is. I know summer has come upon us. Well, we have a hammer of change thrust into a new reality. I think we did signify these patterns that are happening that we're working with. It's amazing. Let's start. I think we'll get those slides right up. Whoops, that's the very ending. Well, that is what we're going to be talking about, but let's see if we can get to the beginning.
That's all, folks. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's all, folks. Boy, that was a great cartoon. Okay, here we go. Alrighty. There are moon phases. It's a constant process. There's 8 that we have devised, but we're talking about 4. In an hour, that's as best as we might do. But for those folks that want to check out the other 4 intermediate, because the sun waxes as it grows and wanes as it decreases, preparing for the next one. It's a cycle of 28 days, 29 actually by the time it completes it. And here's another one with it that shows a little more clarity on the primary moon phases, major or primary, however you want to call it. So there's a new moon that's, you can't see it, rises on the east, and the full moon is fully lit, whereas the quarter moons look like a half moon. Either one side or the other is lit. The ones that we're talking about have actually happened. Let's go back to that slide. Boy, we're jumping. Uranus is on the move, isn't it? About to get into Gemini in just tomorrow. Hot diggity. Yeah, we're on the cusp. Today is the 6th, tomorrow's the 7th. That's right, long awaited. Well, we'll get to that conversation. So, for the podcast people, June 25th was the new moon at 4 degrees, 7 degrees, minutes rather, of Cancer. On the 2nd, just before the 4th of July, the first quarter was at 11 degrees, 9 minutes, Libra. The full moon coming up in a few days will be July 10th, sometimes the 11th, depending where you are, at 18 degrees, 50 minutes, Capricorn. And the third quarter is July 18th at 25 degrees, 40 minutes, Aries. And I have that little cartoon up there that I worked with, hammering, because there's a lot of patterns here called Thor's hammer, and it's driving some issues ahead. Shall we lead on? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let's. Just one thing I wanted to say. It's interesting that this moon cycle, all of the moons are in cardinal signs. So there's this real initiatory feel to it, which fits with the astrology that we're going to be looking at as well. Very forward moving.
Thank you. Absolutely. Along with it, we have the moon out of bounds. That means it's really working in all the aspects that the moon engages in it for its nature, which is a lot to do about the past, our emotions, our foundation with that archetype. But it's for the new moon in Cancer, so it wants security. And then in the full moon of Capricorn, which is really more looking at the authorities and the boundaries and what cycles have ended and begun, perhaps. But Hygeia, the asteroid of purity and toxicity, which is between Mars and Jupiter, is out of bounds from the 1st all the way to the 3rd. And I didn't check, I'm sorry to say, Amanda, I know we discussed it, when it was going to end. But it's a strong, the asteroids aren't always so evident with some of our patterns, but the asteroids, those entities that we influence us, that are often of the female aspects. And again, we hold all of these, but maybe we could call it yin, the receptive, are active.
Yeah. And just to note also, when a planet is out of bounds, it's kind of representing the soul, our souls breaking free from consensus reality. So there's a real ability to kind of wiggle out of those tight patterns that sometimes we are stuck in, that we don't know how to get out of. So there's a lot of advantages, and that's part of the reason why we like to call them out.
Oh, wiggle out of. I wrote that down. Yes. We'll begin with the new moon. Again, it was over a week ago, but it sets the stage. The moon was in Cancer along with the sun. Of course, the moon is ruled by Cancer, so it's very intuitive. It's very involved on an emotional scale of knowing its story. And this is the full scale of it. It's a seed point. And from that, it evolves. Most interesting, it had a very point of contention, you could say, trying to make huge adjustments because Pluto is wanting to make a transformation, but it's with those actions that you're talking about, Amanda, with Mars and with the new moon itself. But not only that, but the new moon is with Jupiter, which is growth. Because as we discussed in the last session a month ago, Jupiter went into its new cycle for a year, which will be in Cancer. So they're all together. This is,
Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. It likes being in Cancer because Jupiter is naturally expansive, and Cancer likes to nurture and take care. So it's a very fine combination. Whenever I see a yod, my brain goes into spiritual assignment. Like, this is what you need to work on at this time. And I was looking at this triangle. You have Pluto on the top, and you have Jupiter, Moon, Sun, and you have Mars. And I came up with find control, focus, and intensity in your therapeutic work with grace and action. That ties in the Mars. And shine in that because there's the Sun and the Moon.
I love that. Yeah, the yods are there's a lot of discomfort with them because they never we can't quite get it figured out fully. And so when I think of a yod, I think of there's a real necessity to kind of surrender into it. And the old phrase, like, let go and let God, or source or universe, or whatever your terminology is, just allowing things to unfold and not trying to force things too much.
Right.
Indeed, it is, especially in a transit, that experience. You don't have time to really work at it, but it's a stepping stone, because look at this, that new moon, that energy that we're kind of working from was also activated trying to get together with Saturn and Neptune, which is spirituality when it's combined. So I think, yes, John and Amanda, what you're saying is it's a matter of recalibrating what the realities are. Like, is it all that we see? Are we getting information coming from more the subtle realms? That because Chiron and Eris are also involved, in another activity with our thoughts. So our thinking is maybe we're getting, like Hermes can get underneath and do the invisible. So listening to maybe the signs, as they are called. What are we hearing? Mm-hmm.
And if you think about this yod and spiritual assignment happening with the sky, showing us a whole lot of Aries, take action, move now, and Cancer, here's all this emotion. So you're having to do this thing where all this rumbling is going on, which could be kind of challenging. And like Amanda said, ride that a little bit and just let that be, right?
And all of that Aries is ruled by a Mars in Virgo, which is really particular. It wants things done in a very specific way, and it can get a little bit in a tizzy over things. A lot of anxiety can come forward if we're not doing it all perfectly. And so I think that's going to be coming forward. And if we think about this new moon has already happened, but it is the seed point for the whole month. And I like this yod as this, it's pointing towards that Pluto in Aquarius. And I think one of the highest expressions of Pluto in Aquarius is being able to be in a space of non-attachment, like not allowing things to get under your skin as much as possible. And then there's so much power in that. It's very empowering to not let other people's BS kind of get at you,
One's own space. Absolutely. And that's where we see the spiritual. We connect with that center. I think this is really very expressive that you've both contributed. Along with that, it's an ongoing flow with that Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. And it's with Uranus that as of tomorrow will be ingressing into Gemini. I mean, we're just so on this threshold. And with Mars. So just to not go into this as much, perhaps, but hearing what you have to say, this is the backdrop that there's a lot of connections helping us just move, adjusting.
Well, it's so nice to have the outer planets working together, and because they're all the outer planets. These are the planets that we can't see with our naked eye, except for Saturn to a degree, but Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, you can't see them with naked eye. And so they're unconscious. They're operating unconsciously. And so to have them working together as we're working through what we can on a conscious level is really positive.
Yeah.
I think of mini trines as the podcast configuration. There's like these three great brains that have come together to talk things and work things out. And the kind of like the leader would be the focal point. So like in this one on the left, you have Saturn, Neptune building a dream, and they're working with Pluto and Uranus to get some kind of dream going. On the right, you got Mars. Let's get some action going. And he's working with the lights in Jupiter, and good old Vesu is also a flame. So this is very helpful. Let's talk about it. What can we build? What can we work on? Kind of energy.
Boy, I've been feeling
exciting.
That. Well, let's go to the first quarter, because again, this is also past. This was just before the 4th of July on the 2nd, which is actually when the Declaration of Independence started getting all signed. Some people consider that to be the Declaration in a sense. And so we have here with Virgo, of course, Mercury, that is important. And it's a powerful action as well. We have action-oriented T-square, where Ceres, the dwarf planet, also considered many other things, that's because she's on the inside in that asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. But with the moon, with the squaring that first quarter, because the first quarter is a square,
I think it's really interesting that we've got this T-square with the moon in it. The moon is in Libra, and Libra really wants harmony. It's all about harmonizing and keeping peace. And you look at the ruler of the moon, Venus, is there with Uranus. And so we're making some big shifts in how we operate in relationships. And being harmonious does not mean being passive. You can actively be working towards peace and harmony. And, you may have to put your foot down for something, but that's correct. And so there's a lot of courage that you need to keep harmony in place sometimes, and to speak the truth, and to speak it with love, and to speak it in a way that's connecting and not
divisive.
Yes, thank you. Good word.
Yeah.
I noticed when I looked at this configuration, you have Jupiter and Sun, the big fathers of the Zodiac or whatever, and they're in Cancer, and they're having to tone down and be gentle, and they're square these two classic mother archetypes, Moon and Ceres. So there's this coming together where, what are we doing, right?
Harmonizing, yes, and perhaps harmonizing the parental roles within ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I know I've written that down from before, but it seems like, especially with Jupiter and Cancer, because we do know that in mythology, Jupiter is the father and of gods and people, everything. And here, but in Cancer, which is absolutely the yin mother nature of life, indeed, because those roles are different today than they were in ancient times. In ancient times, it wasn't our mama and dad, whatever you call them. It was the higher spiritual beings. Let's move on and see what other things. We have this Thor's hammer. We're hammering.
Uh-oh.
And that's a sacred geometry. It's moving, it's action, it's changing things. There's one focal planet that's driving that energy. And it's in a extra sesquiquadrate, as we call it, 135 degrees, which combines the classic square of 90 degrees and a semi-square of 45, two ones that in a square. Now, that might be a lot of garble for those people that don't really want to know the detail, but the fact is action, and it's driving it home. So let's see who is the focal point. Well, it's our North Node. We want to head to unity. We want to head to what doesn't divide us. And we're working with our thoughts. We're working with another flame asteroid of Vesta. So this is like the hammering of some sort, trying to make that change between the details to, I think, unify and classify these things so that we can begin to see a picture more in totality and not be so divided. Yeah.
Finding a way to shine. You have Mercury in Leo, which is ruled by the sun. And of course, Vesta is a flame, and it's an intense flame. She's in Scorpio. So the thing that makes you shine, that leads you forward on your karmic path, the North Node, perhaps. And
Yes.
of course, I think Thor's hammer, we'd agree that this is the work needed to be done. It's a hammer. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It's like, yes, it wants to be done. It's like we're just trying in some fashion to get there. The problem is that we're in a process. There's not going to be an abracadabra one thing, because everybody has their own vision. Pisces is so full of imagination and idealism, and sometimes deceptive because we don't see quite the truth, but we're trying to work to the truth. And that could be the turning point. Where is the truth of everything? But we're in that energy. And of course, remember, this is the first quarter that we're talking about. We're still working in that. We haven't got to the full moon. Should we?
Yeah, well, just to note about Thor's hammer, it's a very intense aspect, and there can be a sense of being forced to take action, and to really focus your will and your power on things. The hammer itself was used by Thor, who is a god in Norse cosmology, and when Thor would throw it, Thor was there to protect against the giants who symbolized chaos and forces that threatened order. So there's this sense of protecting things. It's a positive, this is a positive aspect. It's a challenging aspect, but it's positive. And the hammer was sometimes called a boomerang of justice. It would always return back to Thor. Mm-hmm. So this is a law-driven event that's happening, or dynamic that's happening, and it can be challenging. It's just a matter of knowing how, when, and why to take action. And that reminds me a lot of the fact that we're in the snake year. I'm going back to the snake again.
Thank you.
The snake is about knowing when to strike, right? So this is like there's a lot of need for controlled action, and because we will be asked to take action. It's just a matter of how and when we choose to take that action with this.
Mm-hmm. I thank you very much. Yeah. And again, we have that same mini square that's working in the background, really, as you kind of well indicated, because we don't see them, but it's still functioning. This matter of the changing towards working with what is current and our spiritual and new dimensions, and because I'm talking about Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, Venus, and Uranus. But as I say, Uranus is really just tugging forward to get into Gemini for the next 7 years. So shall we go to the next one and see what happens?
Sure.
Okay. Well, we have a point of Thales. Again, another pattern that has it's an opposition with another one that's in a trine and a sextile to it, and it's resolution. But we have two of them. Here, it's amazing in that we're still dealing with this. We haven't got to the full moon yet. Hygeia, which is another asteroid of purity that we mentioned, purity and toxicity, because she's health. She was the daughter of Eclipsis, the physician. And it's out of bounds, and it will be for the rest of this period. And she's a reconciliation between perhaps what series that is maybe of grief and wanting to see the truth of what's happening and our balance.
We could speak to the current moment with Hygeia. I didn't know she was out of bounds, so this came up in our discussions. Out of bounds, meaning, look at me, here I am, and what's happening politically is this bill that went by that's slashing healthcare, and the goddess of health is here going, what are you doing? Do you really want to do this? I think that's very interesting.
It is. It is interesting. Hygeia has popped up quite a bit. And I know on a personal level too, and it's really of our self-care. And back to what I think Amanda, was saying, with when we come back to ourselves, and of course that's what Saturn and Neptune are saying, is find your own spirituality, but you really find that within your own core, and then being perhaps objective to see the rest of the world in order to move forward. Yep. Well, this is how we'll conclude here. As of yesterday, the USA had its Jupiter return, because we are a Cancerian country. However, also both Venus and Jupiter were also in Cancer. Venus was at 3 degrees, which happened several weeks ago in June, and Jupiter has its return, which is once every 12 years in Cancer. So this is a monumental time for us to find out what's our security, what's our foundation. And many people have many stories about it. To me, Cancer is also an emotional story. And as we bring in new information, that keeps changing. Like, what is the story? Are we including this? Are we excluding that? It's huge.
Jupiter in Cancer, it's a good placement for the U.S. chart, because Cancer being family, and Jupiter wants to expand that family, and we're all included.
Yes, that's the idea with we the people. It's always, and we just finished our Chiron return, which again is in for the United States, because it's in Aries, is do I belong? Who belongs? And what's our leadership? Because it's a pioneering. And it looks to the presidency often at those times. So here we've come up with a 50-year cycle that we're still moving through. It concluded between last year and this year in February. And now we have a Jupiter return. There's many cycles that are converging in many levels of this reenactment of our nationality as a people. Well, I think we're on pause here. That was a lot, but we'll be right back looking at the full moon and Uranus, because as of tomorrow, this energy with Thor's, having that, actually, I don't think Uranus had we'll talk, but it was lightning. Lots of lightning. Okay, thank you. Be right back. Stay tuned.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. Currently, we are in the period of Cancer. By leaving a cycle based on connecting mental communication to the external, the energy of Cancer involves emotions, which create our personal story through our emotional associations and attachments. As a cardinal water sign that is nurturing, Cancer needs to process emotions in one's own internal rhythm of cycles in order to complete an evolution.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
This is Martha Norwalk every Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. Thanks in part to Dr. Nels Rasmussen at Healing Ministry for Animals, we cover the world of animals. This week, July 13th, it's a change of schedule, behavior training and healing Sunday with me, and talk with your human or animal loved ones on this side or the other, and private readings with Natasha Venter. Hope you can join us and plan to call in with your questions for either one of us or a personal reading with Natasha. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/1150KKNW.
Hi, we are back again. So let's see where that slides are. I think if we can get, thank you so much. At the halftime, I'll bring attention to our great panel. We have Amanda Pierce. You can connect with her at AmandaMoonAstrology@gmail. John Chinworth, skypathastro.com, and his email is archerstars@gmail.com. And myself, Sue Minahan, Talk Cosmos, or info@talkcosmos.com. And for Talk Cosmos, just to bring attention that we've had quite a few wonderful shows that you might want to catch if you haven't. There was one about dwarf planets, Octave, and Jupiter in Cancer. The solstice was a vibrational astrology discussion about the entire season, very illuminating. And then we had Astrojam, which is every 3 months, and it was about Jupiter and Uranus, and everybody took a role. It was lots of fun. And next week, I'm very happy to bring up Alakazam with Planet Buzz, with Uranus at 0 degrees Gemini, and we have Rick Levine. And many of you in Seattle know Rick. You may go to his once-a-month event on the first Fridays over in Redmond at the Soul Food Cafe, Coffee House. You know, Amanda and I used to all the time. So that was a lot of fun. And he will certainly be a great conversation about this event happening tomorrow on July 7th. Uranus going to Gemini. Always to bring up Fractal Cosmos. You can find that at fractalcosmos.org. It's a vibrational astrology conference online. Extremely reasonable. It'll be Labor Day weekend. Check it out. And thank you, everybody, for joining and subscribing, either for our newsletter or on YouTube. Look at this. Boy, we have here the 4 little moons cooking it up. It's in Cancer, and the full moon is what we are about to discuss. Oh, forgot, Uranus, planet of awakening. It's tomorrow. You know, it's going to continue all the way to 2033 because it flips in 32 going from Cancer back to Gemini. And it will be retrograde November 7th to next year for several months. I mean, that's like 5 months that it goes back into Taurus. But we are entering Gemini as of tomorrow.
Yeah, it's really going to revolutionize how we think about things, how we communicate, how we learn, how we connect. It's an awakener, and so it's about bringing disruption and innovation and liberation forward for us all.
Yes, new language. It will be quite amazing. New ways of even thinking or talking. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping it brings in new ways to think about how we use this awesome technology that we have. You know, and just get the discussion going. Like, what is this we're really dealing with? I think that'd be very nice.
I am waiting for one thing, and that's holograms. Like, for instance, the 3 of us are in different locations, but I'll actually look over and I'll see Amanda and I'll see John. It's a little scary in a way, but it could happen.
Who knows, right? With Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini, that's going to be quite the combo.
So here we have it on the 10th of July as far as the East Coast, and that is at 4:36 p.m. It's coming up in 4 days, and we're in the middle of it. And it's culmination, illumination, and release. And it's looking at Saturn. It's going to be in Capricorn, which is boundaries and etc. But we're going to begin with Point of Thales. Again, back to that resolution point. It's an aspect pattern that's creative, with that activity between an opposition, this and something else. And it is here with the full moon itself. And I keep saying and, I'm trying to delete that word, but it's such a continuation, because here's looking at the nodes. I know earlier we were talking about the Thors, which were in the process of trying to get to that north node of unity, of getting to the magic of our vision. But in this case, what's on the other side of it is the wonderful Virgonian idea that we're all coming from, of fixing things in details. But yet, perhaps what it's saying in Capricorn to me with the moon is, because we were talking about the limit somewhat with the time. I think the time factor with Capricorn is, what are we really organizing? What are those details that are so compelling? Can we restructure them? What has priority? Perhaps that's it.
Capricorn is that sign of hierarchy and going up by levels. You know what I mean? So maybe there's some of that, building a correct structure, perhaps.
Roles, yes.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I've been looking at that with the Capricorn moon. It's really it really wants to build something, right? And it's purposeful, it's steady, it has a long-term vision. But the moon is also out of bounds, so I think there's some capacity here to kind of look at that Capricorn energy in a different way and kind of disregard a lot of the quote unquote shoulds that we're supposed to follow emotionally. Like, how should you feel? How should you love, nurture, belong? I think that's coming up here. And with a point of Thales, which has there can be a lot of creative solutions that come out of this. We may need to kind of emotionally shift how we're doing things a little bit during this month, because there is such a push to take action in challenging circumstances with the Thor's hammers and all the yods. It's so that feels to me like a real nice way to kind of do something a little bit different that may not fit cultural standards.
Very interesting to hear your dialogues, because it brings back that word I always think of with Capricorn about conditioning. It's a real toggle. And I think of toggle going one way and back and flipping to look at both sides of it. What conditioning has value to bring up, because it is the moon looking at the past, and what really needs to is being thrust upon to shift gears for, and how to act. It's, oh boy, the clarity. But thankfully, yes. Let's see what else is happening.
You have Ceres. If you go back to that previous slide, Ceres square the sun and moon. That adds another component about what we're working on. And I didn't used to do this, but now I do think of Ceres as have something to do with loss. So, and it's square the lights, sun and moon. So like that, like what's, I'm not trying to make it into words, and I can't because my brain just, but maybe to bring it up. So what's the loss? What loss are we dealing with at this time?
And how to reclaim that loss within us. And I suppose it is, thank you for this. Rather than looking at the external, it is looking within. With all these asteroids, it's really, and she's not an asteroid. I mean, Ceres is a dwarf planet now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet it is that capacity to see within. And in that story, she ended up teaching other people when she claimed what she had lost, which was rebirth of vegetation, her daughter, and new sustenance. She taught people to sustain themselves. So it is really, how are we sustaining ourselves? Thank you. Both.
And given that it's a Capricorn moon, Cancer sun, so there's a lot of family dynamics that may come forward here, and potentially some ancestral patterns or dynamics that are ready to be released that just don't serve anymore. keep what serves and get rid of what doesn't.
Oh, good. Wonderfully or amazingly, that full moon not only is in that pattern that we just looked at, but there's also another one of being a kite, which is another focal point. We have a trine, a water trine, and that's an emotional of some sort, and a trine that not only flows, but with vibrational astrology, the research has said needs to flow. That's a very interesting component where you want it to flow. It's flowing and you don't want to stop that. Mm-hmm. You will do anything to keep it going, as a matter of fact, which actually can be kind of dangerous, which people have not always thought about with trines, grand trines, but with water. But here, the apex point is that moon in Capricorn that's signifying a whole new language.
Maybe the moon may be asking, okay, you have this really great, wonderful emotional energy that feels so good. What are you going to do with it? Stand on some ground and let's put it to work.
Yeah, and what are the
Capricorn being work? I don't know.
Yeah, and a Capricorn moon has a tendency to not feel a lot of the times. So I think this is a real helper. All this water energy, this grand trine, that's just flowing so well and kind of feeding into this Capricorn moon so that it can start like breaking down those walls that keep itself from feeling. And with it being out of bounds like there's a lot of potential for that. So if you need to feel during this full moon, go for it. I think that's a really beautiful thing.
That is very beautifully said, because Capricorn gets a goal. It's manifesting something to construct. However, you're right. Getting in touch with how you really are sensing, feeling the emotional stories of it. They're the navigating force in life. That's what really.
And there's such a big push with that, with Jupiter moving into Cancer and like really feeling into our wisdom and feeling into our truth and like really knowing that we have that in our systems and we can build that relationship with our emotions and learn from them and help guide us on our path.
This moon is also in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is over there on the left, right next to Neptune, the dream. So building the dream or dreaming about what you want to build. So that's very helpful. It's just very helpful Saturn in this whole scene.
I'm beginning to feel it. Yes. It's like being out in a boat, a ship, but you have lifeboats. You have, on land, there's a lighthouse. There's help. There's a lot of direction to work with. And look at also there's a mystic rectangle. It's just packed, and there's connections all around this chart. Looking at those sextiles, meaning there's a little help from here, a little help from there, and there's enough support to really, and that mystic rectangle is along with the moon, the lights and the nodes.
Right. So this is like the soul and the spirit ready to build whatever they're going to build in tune with the karmic direction of the soul itself. It's very significant.
Thank you. You describe things so well.
Okay. Can we also talk a little bit about Hygeia being I feel like she's quite prominent this month, and I really love that what she brings to the table. I mean, it's about kind of having an awareness around healing and purification and wellness. And given like there's so many, big energies here, it's for us to really think about like what is our emotional hygiene, our mental hygiene, our spiritual hygiene, like listening to our body for intuitive messages, kind of decluttering and detoxing our lives, whether that's our food, our environment, people, or even our own thoughts, like getting like as clean as possible.
Good point. Yeah.
So that we can
Becoming aware.
becoming aware and like maybe making some shifts here and there, listening to what's needed.
Amanda, yes. And isn't that a natural thinking of Uranus in Gemini, which is everything about ideas and words and thoughts and those sudden things? They can be so rapid that perhaps you don't quite connect, but still it is the awareness. I think just walking about, one realizes that their emotions are the conditioning that one has been doing just in preparation. Like I was choosing earrings and I was thinking like, well, what purpose does this, you know what I mean? You begin to see things in a new dialogue. It's like, I like color and whatnot, but it's for what purpose? How is it all relating? Because Venus is also, all of it combined. Okay, I want to keep moving. Shall we move?
Let's do it.
Sure.
Okay. We have this little point, not so strong. That's why I spelled it out. But Junos are alliances. To say it nicely, it can be where we feel very entrenched in a relationship. But on a modern scale, it is our alliances, and we're not feeling that they're working so well. It's that adjustment in a quincunx, which a yod is, with what we've lost or how to regain it and the purity of our thoughts. So essentially I'm saying, is because it's a full moon, is this working? How are we adjusting our actions or our connections, you might say, with alliances? And it's not an easy answer. I think this is part of the backdrop of what
it's
we're
that
really...
therapeutic energy again, another spiritual assignment. Find fidelity and acceptance in your therapeutic work with health and loss.
Goody. Well, we'll keep that on the back burner.
I love these little asteroid goddesses because they're so subtle, and when they line up with each other, they're like, bam!
Yeah,
you know,
and they
it's
are
like
now.
tune into
They're
this
saying,
like
we're
radio
here.
station or something. Yeah,
and it's the more you tune into like your yin experience, I think in the world, the more you're tuned to the asteroids.
And we need to do that to get that Saturn and Neptune, which is in close connection. They're like so close. They're just minutes apart from each other. And they conjunct in February. So we're in this 6th, 7th, 8th month period of just, it is not overnight. It'll be so fascinating to see how the months progress. But that's being very objective. Meanwhile, we are in the trenches. Jupiter is in Cancer. It's personal. We're processing.
And I think that this yod, it has a lot to do with kind of cleaning up our relationships, like like decluttering. Like that's the hygiene.
Find real purpose of that. Like, how is it serving us? And to give it love, like you brought back earlier to say, because it's easy to go, oh, well, that doesn't matter. But to just stop and realize how it served and for what you understood it to be at that moment and how it sufficed, and realize, okay, fine, now we can go on. Because even with Ceres, she gets her daughter back, but she has to share. It's not just as it was before. She has to share it with Hades, Pluto, in the underworld. There's a rebirth personification time.
There is a lot of, with Ceres, there is a lot of grief over not having what was,
And we need to process,
we do need to process that and come to terms with that and hold our own, clean up our own energy and our own spaces so that we can see clearly and surrender to the best choice here.
I'm wondering if Eris and Chiron, let's go. Oh, well, we lost that. Okay. We're going to go to the third quarter, and it's a crisis in consciousness. What we're in now is the first quarter, which is a crisis in action. How am I going to get that seed into its full bloom, which we've just talked about, which will be on the 10th and 11th. And part of that process that we're talking about is like, what is blooming? What isn't? What do I need to prune? What else can I feed? And here it's, okay, now crisis in consciousness, how's the meaningfulness? What is it in letting me begin with a new seed as I go forth. Yes.
Yeah, it's a readjustment period. It's a review period. It's kind of reaping the rewards or eliminating what's unnecessary. What's interesting about this quarter is there's a lot of action. It's not just a kind of calm down and review. It's continuing to happen. And I think what that's saying is that there is a lot happening internally for us with these aspects that are coming forward.
And I goofed, folks. For this particular slide, I try to give this as a hallmark. And there's always details. There's so many details. But Aries should be Mars. So this was last month in Pisces. But it does reflect the idea that as far as the cycles, each one just moves one side forward. And then there's whole patterns, but just realize that. Let's move into the real chart. We have the long enduring those connecting mini trines as they're called. And they haven't really changed. It's still lasting.
Now Venus is alone having the conversation with Mercury, and I can't see, I guess that's Ceres. That's kind of cool.
Yes.
Venus leading it, right? The beauty of this moment, the beauty of speaking about our losses and our grievances, as Amanda was saying, right?
And this one has lasted because I think both Mercury and Venus are kind of moving at the same tempo a little bit, closer to that series. Yep. Well, we have another Thor's hammer too. That's why if I had a hammer, I'd hammer out justice. I'd hammer out danger all over this land. That was Peter, Paul, and Mary, and I think also Pete Seeger that wrote it back. It was a big deal back in the 60s, folk singers. But what a great song. My goodness. So the focal energy, look at this. We have two of them.
It's a lot of red.
Yeah, we have a lot of action, a lot of pushing. So I circled the two that are the apex focal planet. It is Pluto. What surprise. And here, interestingly, I didn't do a 0 degree chart, which most of these charts are 0 degrees. So this one must be for the good old USA, which was on the 17th of July at 8:37 p.m., which we mentioned earlier. And of course, Pluto's right at the ascendant. So maybe that was a lucky strike just to put down. And the other one is that spiritual point of, which we're calling it, breaking down the walls of what the conditioning to look at the vision bigger with Neptune. Boy, what a process.
Yeah, it's there's no lightweight energy here. Pluto's it's obsessed with upgrading outdated systems and liberating the mind when it's in Aquarius. So it becomes this pressure release point when it's in a Thor's hammer, and it's kind of asking you to change your relationship to control and to your mental frameworks. And Mars is the conscious driver of your soul desire. So whereas Pluto is the soul and it's operating unconsciously, Mars is what we're using consciously to drive things forward. So that's in play, and they're not necessarily playing well together here. There's a lot of pressure. So it's kind of interesting to see how that's all going to work out. And there could be a lot of anxious energy with Mars in Virgo, and kind of perfectionistic and a little bit harsh when we're under pressure. So just something to be aware of, and in yourself and in others.
Yes, indeed.
I could speak to that other Thor's hammer with this. Now I can't remember what was in it. If you go back to that slide with the hammers. Yeah. So the other hammer is, of course, the apex point is Saturn and Neptune. And I mentioned before, that's like building a dream. The dream you want to build, well, it's hard work. And you have to communicate, says Mercury and Leo. And then you have these beautiful goddesses again. You got Vesta and Juno saying, well, Juno, a true flame, right? Fidelity, and you have Vesta keeping that fire lit. So make it true, folks.
Oh, boy.
Like
Well, just to kind of recap, because we're getting close to the end here, what new foundational basis might we be communicating this change? I mean, we do have Uranus as of tomorrow coming up in Gemini, and there's a lot of patterns that are vying for their claim for fame, just to be a kind of fun about it. But really, yeah, we can talk to them. Just okay.
a lot of forward movement this month, you know? Yeah.
Focused on health because of Hygeia and her out of bounds.
Yeah.
And listening to ourselves, really taking that time to step back out of the fray to realize the past, what's of purpose, what's conditioning, what's our own values. It's kind of the 9 yards.
Listening to our emotions, listening to our body, tuning to our knowingness so that we can stay on the correct path and as we navigate.
And thankful is always
Gratitude.
good for what was, for whatever purpose it had. You kind of put it to rest and let it grow again, like that.
Well, I'm grateful for both of you and being here today, and all of our listeners and viewers.
And we wish everybody solace and joy in some dimension, as close at home as it might be, whether they have a kitchen or a nice plant to look at, or a sun ray, or a snowdrop down under. I know that I was talking to somebody from Australia, and she was all wrapped up. It's winter down there. So we have to remember we're many different levels of the world. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.